Um, my name's Alex Colvin, and Linda Colvin is filming this for Pit River Country. And this is just an opportunity for pastors to share some of their wisdom with the community. You talked this week about wisdom.
Yes.
So I have 4 questions that I'm going to ask. This is Pastor Sheaden Crabtree of the Foursquare. Why don't you introduce your church, and then I'll ask and then I will ask the 4 questions.
Thank you. Greetings. This church has been in the community since 94 or 96. A little hazy on the dates, but for the last 20 years, and has had an impact into this community. The name of the church is Solid Rock Foursquare, and we've been in this location for that length of time. And so it's just my honor to be pastor of this church and be part of this community.
And that brings us to question number 1. How long have you been in the ministry, and how long have you been ministering here in Burney?
Well, I've been a senior pastor since 2007. I pastored a church in northern Nevada for 6 years, and then moved to Burney in 2013 with my family to take over Solid Rock as the lead pastor. I've been in ministry, church ministry, as a youth pastor, senior pastor for 20 years. Started
ministry for 20 years.
Ministry for 20 years.
And
senior pastor for 11 and a half, I think.
And then you've been here in Burney for 5 years.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. So looking back over your years of ministry, and this doesn't just have to be as a senior pastor, growing up in the church and studying, what are some of the most important lessons that you have learned?
Keep your mouth shut. Nothing ever seems what it is until you've seen it through to its fruition. You never know a person's story until you actually get to know them. And then once you get to know them, then you begin to understand who they are as a person. And so I've learned not to judge them until I've gotten to know them. And even then realize that there's really no need to judge. They're a person just as I'm a person, and at the end of the day, we just need to love one another. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'll move right on ahead. What do you see as the primary needs of this community of Burney, spiritual or physical? And how do you feel that God is leading you and your church to address those needs?
Yeah, sure. It's been my observation that this community is more of a transient community. And by transient, people come and they go based off of the job, what's available. We get a lot of folks coming through the town, whether they're hiking or whether they're homeless. We have homeless that have been part of this community for a long time, and they're just part of this community. And then, we have the working family where they're raising their kids, and they just simply want to be part of a community where their kids can go to school, they can go swimming, they can kind of experience small town life in a good community. And this is a great community for a family. This is a great community for the person who just recently retired and they want to move either from the Bay Area or wherever it is that they're coming from. And so it's just a good place to be. Now, as far as what we as a church are doing, my philosophy is simply to love people, to forgive them, whatever that looks like, and to accept them for who they are. And that's my personal philosophy. And part of us as a church, we have 3 things that we do. One is that we love those around us. 2 is that we grow in our walk with the Lord. And 3 is that we serve. Because when you're loving people, you're growing. And in the process of growing, if you keep everything to yourself, you become stagnant. And so you have to give of yourself. It's not a works thing. It's simply a necessity born out of the need as you're growing to do something in your community. And so you find people wanting to reach out, whether it's to their neighbors, to their loved ones, whether it's someone in the community. And so it's really important as we as a church, as we are learning to grow in our walk with the Lord, that it becomes a very organic thing in how we reach out to people. And so Yeah, that to just kind of sum it up, that's where it's at.
Okay. And are there any particular things right now where God is leading you, to grow the church? And you kind of already sort of answered these things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like now, because you express the Spirit,
Right.
that you love God,
Right.
you love one another,
Right.
You're growing in that relationship
Right.
of love, and that motivates you to
Right.
serve the community.
Right.
So
If you put it that way, it kind of makes it sound like we're a hippie movement, which we're not, just free flowing with love and everything else. I think it requires practicality on our part, where we realize that we're just human beings living here on earth, and that we love Jesus with all of our heart. And in the process of loving God, in allowing Him to love us, it changes who we are as a person. And out of that recognition, that realization that He's changing us, we have an impact on people's lives. You can't do it any other way.
Right.
You can't go out and love people if you've never experienced what love feels like. If you've never experienced what not only the love of the people around you feels like, but how God loves you. And if you don't know how God loves you, then how can we expect you to love others? And so it takes a lot of work. For us, organically as a church, we are working on getting one of our buildings remodeled, and it's going to be called the House. The House is going to be kind of the working horse of our church. It's not going to be the primary function of our church ministry, but we're going to use that building not only to reach out to our homeless, and by reaching out to our homeless, we're not housing them. We're not going to become a place where they can come and live. It's going to simply be a place where they can come use a shower, they can get their clothes clean, they can feel like a human being. And when people can feel human, then just maybe God's love can pierce through whatever walls is there. And that's our goal, is that people can experience the love of God in a real way. And I think as a church, we've missed the target over the past years on trying to reach people's hearts. And so we have to find a way that's very real, that's very practical, but also meets people in their most basic needs. If we can meet the basic need,
right,
then God can come in and touch their hearts. It's not my job to touch people's hearts. That's God's job, thankfully. And but He gave me two hands to work with, and if I can do that for His glory, I'm going to.
Okay. Now I'm going to, just from what you've said, I'm going to make a brief statement of response.
Okay.
It's not actually a question.
Yeah,
something.
absolutely.
Because, I also have been involved some touching on the housing issues, the homeless issues, the mental health issues, youth issues, working with youth. I know you have an interest in youth. And what came to me, because, sometimes it's hard for people to get I feel like the solutions are there if people could
Right.
get together, even practical things like the parks.
Right.
The solutions are there if people could put their heads together.
Right.
None of these problems are unsolvable.
Right.
But the core thing is what you've touched on. Is, I remember talking with somebody saying, I'm looking just for 5 to 10 people. I actually just said 5. If I could find 5 people who
Right.
really have a revolution of heart going on in their own inner life,
Right.
in their own relationship with God, where they just are seeking the kingdom of God first and seeking to express that love and build a community of love, helping to break down the barriers on that. That I believe that if those kind of relationships, divinely inspired, lovingly inspired relationships began to form, all of the external problems could be solved. That's my comment, and I just want to hear what your response is to that.
It sounds like we're living in a dream world. The fact that we're human means that we're going to have problems. We're surrounded by conflict, and we're surrounded by dysfunction every single day. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. And so we have to find a way to climb up out of that dysfunction and get beyond our own humanness. And the only answer is Jesus. And, you know, people go towards any other kind of thing looking for that answer, trying to find their own identity or trying to find some kind of response that's going to fix their life in a way that they can start over again. But, you know, I've moved cross country a couple of times. I've moved from different house, and every once in a while I think, oh, well, maybe my life will change. I'll just start fresh. No, my problems move with me. And it's like, oh, well, I keep repeating the same process, but I started a new life over here, or I've done this, or opened up a new bank account, or whatever that looks like. But the problem's still there. The solution isn't found in me or my strength.
Right.
The solution is found in Jesus, and it's in a walk with the Lord. And if people in our community can get beyond the idea of what the church is doing, because God doesn't want us to go to church. He wants us to be the church. Mm-hmm. And so I think people are realizing that they need to be something more than what they've allowed themselves to be. And what people are allowing themselves to be is kind of this caricature or thing that they've come up with, saying, oh, this is who I want to be. And that's great. They made that decision. But they could be more than that if they allow Jesus into their life. Okay. And so the more people we see coming into their community and just sharing that with them is a good thing.
All right. And so just in closing...
I don't know if that answers your question.
It answers
a lot of my questions.
Well, that answers my question, and I'm grateful that you shared.
Yeah.
And so this will go out now to the people of the Intermountain Area.
Oh, boy.
And to the world, actually, you know.
Yeah.
So...
social media.
Let's just look out there and just look and see, okay, people of Burney, people of the Intermountain Area, world, is there anything you would like to say?
Anything else?
Now not speaking to me, but speaking directly to the people.
You've just given a pastor a free platform to say whatever he wants to say. How much time do you have?
Whatever you would like.
Kidding.
But earlier in church you said the short praise messages are the best. So, you know, I'll leave it to you.
Listen, I am grateful to be in Burney, in the Intermountain Area. I am grateful to be part of this community. I'm grateful that I can be here as a husband, as a father. I have 5 children, and they are being raised in this community. And so I want to thank my community for all of the wonderful work that you guys are doing to make this a better place to raise a family. And I'm so grateful that I can be part of this community and be able to sit down with Alex and be able to just kind of have a frank, what I hope would be a frank conversation, that when people see this video they realize that there are real people living in this community wanting to bring good change. But it just starts by being a good person, and hopefully I can do that in this community. That's my goal.
Okay.
So thank you.
Well, praise God, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.